Hello! In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up sharing data between an OPC UA server and the Kollmorgen AKI HMI panels. We're going to use the KVB, or Kollmorgen Visualization Builder software that we use to develop screens for the AKI panels and show you how to set up this communication. Since our AKI panels can communicate using Modbus TCP with PDMM and PCMM controllers running KAS programs, or directly with AKD drives and AKD basic drives, this is a great way to share data from PLC programs or AKD drives upstream to OPC UA servers. I am starting with the template program that we include in all KAS IDE templates for the PLC Open Motion engine. So if you do File New in the KAS IDE software and pick up PLC Open Template in the Project Explorer, you will see a built-in KVB program, and this is it. It's just got a few built-in screens for a 7-inch AKI panel, which is our most popular size. But the steps I'm going to do can be done in any AKI program, whether you're starting from scratch or from a template. So the first step is you have to go and open the tags section of the software. This is where you'll find a list of all the tags or variables used in the program. When you first start out, the default you just see on your controller is controller 1. I have already added controller 2, which is the setup for the OPC UA server. Controller 1 in this case is for the Modbus TCP communication between the HMI and the KS PDMM controller. To add the controller 2, if you haven't already, you would click on this Controllers sub-tab from the Tags section of KVB software. Then you would click the Add button, and instead of going from the controllers, these are just drivers for different communication protocols on your Kollmorgen. This is what you would typically have when you first start a program. You'd see the Modbus master, so this is just a generic Modbus TCP/IP communication protocol that you can use when you're talking to AKD drives or PDMM, PCMM controllers. But in this case, you would click on the OPC UA server. You would have to enter a valid URL or address for that OPC server. If you didn't and you tried to click the OK button, you would get an error. I'm going to cancel out this add controller, so I've already added controller 2. So if I click on controller 2 and then click controller, you can see that I have already entered the address. This is just the computer that I have the OPC UA server running at. Also, when controller 2 is selected, you can click on settings, and this will bring up a properties screen, and you can optionally set up all these other different parameters. There's a list of all the different namespace settings. So for the server that I am using, all of the tags are in NS5 or namespace 5, so I put that as the default namespace. This will just save some time when you're back in that tag setup screen. You don't have to type in NS5 : between the name of all your variables. It'll just automatically add that. If you want to add other tags or variables from other namespaces, you certainly can type NS2 or NS1 : in order to reference different variables. You also, the default will be for anonymous login. You do have the option to change the radio button to username and password if your OPC UA server requires you to provide password in order to access it. So after you have added the second controller, which in this case is for the OPC UA server, you can go back to your Tags sub-tab, and you would have the second controller 2 column, and you can have a variable or tag be shared both, over Modbus and OPC. But for this quick test, I added 2 variables: a counter test, so this is a variable that will just increment by 1 every second or so, and then a sinusoidal variable that will just vary in a sinusoidal fashion over time. So on the OPC UA server, the names were counter 1 and sinusoid 1 for the variables, just to show you can have separate variable names in your KVB project. I call them counter test and sign test. And then when I do click on them, you can see that the default namespace is 5, so it's really NS5 : counter 1. and S5 colon sinusoid 1, because that's where it is on the OPC UA server side. So now that I have these variables set up in the tag screen, I can use them when I'm on any other screen on my HMI panel. So in order to test or show you that everything's working, communicating, I added just 2 variable boxes to the first or home screen. The first one is showing the counter test, so it's just an integer that'll increment, and the second analog numeric box is tied to the sign test variable, so it is a floating point value. And then I also added a nice feature of KVB. You can have this trend viewer, so I added the sinusoid sign test variable to it, so you can see that it does have a sinusoidal shape over time. So I'm just going to click the Run button. So we will actually, even though this project is set up for a 7-inch AKI panel, I can run it on my development PC to make sure everything's working. Not only that the screens and everything is laid out and looks right, but also it will actually communicate both Modbus and to the OPC UA server to make sure that all the tags and communication is set up correctly. So I'm getting a COM error 1 because I don't have my PDMM controller running right now, but I'm not getting a communication error for controller 2, which is the OPC UA server. So as you see, the incremental counter is going up by 1, and then this is my sinusoid variable, just to prove to you that this actually is a sine shape. Remember, if I click this KVB features button, I will go to a different screen, and you can see this is the trend viewer showing that variable over time, that it does have a sinusoidal shape. So this is just a quick introduction showing you how you can use the tag setup screen, and then especially the controller subtab, in order to add an OPC UA server connection. And then in the tag screen you'll get the second column, controller 2, in which you can type the name, and if it's different from the default, the different section of that OPC server, the different namespace number, if it's different from the default value. So thanks for watching this video.